Well, good afternoon, Minx. You're going to be so impressed with me. I've finally learned how to do my own YouTube video. So I'm going to continue reading our class novel of Cosmic, and this chapter is called Logic Says. After our third lunar orbit, they still didn't want to go back to Earth. I said, "Look, we'll have to go back in the end." "Why? We've got food. We've got lots of food," said Hassan. "But not a lifetime's supply. Anyway, Earth is your home. You have to go back." I was thinking about the Little Stars drama club. Proper food, Mum and Dad. "When we get back," said Florida quietly, just to me, "I won't have a dad." I looked at them all. You can't spend your life up here. The moment I said it, I remembered Alan saying that in a way he had spent his life up here, that his memories of the moon were so bright and vivid that the things he did on Earth seemed grey by comparison. And I thought how completely cosmic it would be if I could fix that for them. If I could make it so that part of them was always up here. So that when they were back on Earth and their dads were yelling and pushing them on, they could just tune out and come back up here where, in their brightest memories, they would always be kids. I got Samson too to run a simulation on Orbiter 4. Basically, the dandelion can't land anywhere. It's supposed to stay in space until it falls apart. But the command module is designed to touch down in the desert. And Dr. Drax's health and safety policy, massive over-provision, means that there's 2 of everything. 2 sets of retro engines, 2 sets of parachutes, twice as much fuel as you'd need. The only thing there wasn't 2 of was the heat shield. But then that was there to protect you entering Earth's atmosphere, and you wouldn't need that for a lunar descent, because there isn't any atmosphere. "Logic says it's possible," said Samson too. "Of course, if you used half the fuel, you wouldn't have any spare. It's a calculated risk." He seemed cool about it, but then he did think that the whole thing was a simulation. We projected the wrist station simulation onto the wall so that we could all watch the command module floating down towards the moon, then plopping back down onto the lunar surface in a shower of dust. Seeing it happen on the wall made you feel as though it had already happened in some way. Florida said, "Can we really do that?" "Let's do it. Let's do it. Let's do it now." "The simulation is based on a 2-hour schedule," said Samson too. "It would be feasible for the duration of 1 orbit." "Sit down, honey. Be a good girl." "We should be able to re-stick them, but someone somewhere made a complete mistake." "The simulation is based on a 2-hour schedule," said Samson too. "It would be feasible for the duration of 1 orbit. We'd have to redock with the dandelion and use that to get back to Earth's orbit." Dog put me off. "Could you redock?" "Well, the command module and the dandelion are stuck together now. If we can unstick them, we should be able to restick them. But someone would have to stay on board the dandelion just to guide it in." "Just like they did on the Apollos," said Florida. "Allegedly," said Samson too. She said, "Well, that should be you then, Samson too, because you don't think there's anything out there anyway." "I'd be very interested to see how far the simulation does go," said Samson too. I said, "I'll stay. I can spend the time you're down there practicing the redocking procedure on the wrist station. I'll be genius at it by the time you come back." Max was worried. He said, "There should be an adult down there to supervise." I said, "No, the adult should be up here, keeping the place nice for when you get home. You don't want a grown-up down there spoiling things. It should be kids only. With the dust and everything, it'd be like a giant sandpit." "It's a crazy idea," said Hassan. Florida was beginning to scowl. I said, "But you've all come all of this way, 250,000 miles. Surely it would be really crazy not to go down the last 68. And Max, this is your chance to press the green button. And Florida, you'll like it when you get there." So I packed them off into the command module with their helmets and their space snacks and some drinks, as though they were going to the beach. Florida was last through the hatch. As she closed it, I said, "Hey, before you go, take these. Tell me what it's like water fighting on the moon." I gave her a few of the little rocket-shaped bottles of water. They climbed into the command module, sealed the hatch behind them, and pressed the green button. I felt the whole dandelion sort of jump backwards, like it had hit a wall. It took a few minutes, but in the end it stabilised, and when it did, someone spoke to me. The unmistakable voice of Keira Knightley said, "Hi, we realise you had a choice of attractions today and would like to thank you for choosing the dandelion." I nearly jumped out of my spray-on suit. It turned out that separating from the command module activated the welcome system, so all these safety announcements played and then Pirates of the Caribbean started running on a plasma screen in the wall. I watched it for a bit, but to be honest, I preferred watching the stars through the window, and then the dandelion moved onto the dark side again, and the picture sort of digitalised, froze, and then vanished. A lot further. This was my 5th time around the back of the moon. I was in a lower orbit now, so I suppose, in a way, I wasn't as far away as I had been the other times, but it felt further. Because I was alone. Everyone else, everyone else. The other kids, Mum and Dad, Dr. Drax, the entire population of China, America, Africa and Russia, children, grown-ups, old people, people shopping, eating, sleeping, being born, even people who'd been dead for hundreds of years like Tutankhamun. They were all somewhere else. I was the only human being on the far side of the moon. Each time we'd gone before round, we spent the whole time looking at the blank space where the moon was. This time I looked out and there were stars. There's no point trying to describe them. It would be like trying to describe the molecules of oxygen that you're breathing. There are just too many of them. The space between Earth and Moon, that's space, because it's a space between things. But on the other side of the moon, that's not space. I'm not between anything. This is the universe. I feel like I'm seeing it all, every bit of it, and it is big. There are more stars than there are people. Billions, Alan had said, and millions of them might have planets just as good as ours. Ever since I can remember, I felt too big. But now I felt small, too small. Too small to count. Every star is massive, but there are so many of them. How could anyone care about one star when there are so many to spare? And what if stars were small? What if all the stars were just atoms in something even bigger? What if stars were just pixels and Earth was less than a pixel? What does that make us? And what does that make me? And Earth was not even dust. I felt tiny. For the first time in my life, I felt too small. The dandelion was filling up with light. The stars were getting just a bit dimmer, like someone was drawing a curtain over them. But I knew what was behind the curtain now. Behind the curtain was everything, and I was nothing. What was the point in even trying to find the others? What was the point in anything? I felt my hand grip the wheel, but I didn't know which way to turn it. How could anything I did make a difference? And if I asked for help, who would hear me? Then my phone pinged. I had a text. "Welcome to Drax Universal, the first truly universal network." And just after that, it rang. I answered it. A voice said, "Liam, where are you, son?" It was my dad. "Well, is this you, Dad?" "Of course it's me, and I've been ringing you for days, ever since you rang us. Your mum was worried about you. She thought you sounded upset, and she was worried that they were letting you stay up so late. Where are you, by the way? This is a great signal." "It's a new network." I was still looking back towards the massive, empty universe, but I was talking to my dad and suddenly everything was different. My dad's voice was real. The stars were just decoration. Are you okay? Because if you're not, I'll come and pick you up. I'm okay. Anyway, it's a bit far. Doesn't matter how far it is. I'm your dad. If you want me to pick you up, just say so. I was going to say something, but then he said, "Did you see the match last night? I think they're developing a real attitude problem. They go down 1-0 and they just fall to pieces. Did you find that St. Christopher, by the way?" "Yes, thanks. Don't forget to bring it home. My dad gave it to me. He's not a saint anymore, St. Christopher, but anyway, he's looked after me. You know the story, don't you?" I did. St. Christopher was some kind of a giant superhero who used to carry travellers across a river, and one day this toddler turned up and asked him to carry him. St. Christopher popped him on his shoulders and carried him, but the toddler kept getting heavier and heavier and heavier until St. Christopher nearly drowned. It turned out that the toddler was Jesus, so when St. Christopher was carrying him, he was carrying, well, the world. It was a story about gravity, really. "I bet it's nice in the Lake District this morning. I bet you've got a nice view, eh? What can you see?" I said, "I've got a great view. I could see the earth. And lovely as the stars had been, the earth was, you could see it was special. It was bright blue for one thing. For some reason, maybe it was because I was getting tired of being weightless, I thought about gravity and how good gravity is. Not just because it keeps you on the ground, even though that is good. I mean, I've loved being weightless, but it's like living on candy floss. In the end, you want potatoes. But it wasn't that. It's gravity that keeps the gases around the earth, the gases that we breathe. And it keeps the water in the oceans and the clouds in the sky, so that it never gets to be 130 degrees on the surface. And it's gravity that keeps the sun together. If there was even a tiny bit more gravity than there is, the sun would be more compact and it would burn brighter and faster, and it would only have lived a few million years, so there would have been no chance for life to grow. And if there was even a bit less gravity, then the sun would burn too dim, and the earth would never have got warm enough for life." "Are you on a main road?" It was Dad again. "Not really. Well, yeah, in a way." In my head, I was listing all the things I could remember from Earth. Mum, Dad, Southport Fair, the 61 bus, and I put my thumb up to blot the Earth out again, but this time it didn't quite blot out, and then I saw something, like a tiny mosquito, whizzing up over the top of my thumb, somewhere out there. The command module was on its way back. Dad said, "I'll tell you what, can you see a pub or a hotel or anything? Hang on, my credit's going here. Text me. I'll top up and use that Draxworld thing to find you. Righto." Then his phone went dead, which was just as well, because the docking procedures take a bit of concentration. I'm putting this phone away now till the children are all back on board. See you later.